Oh, I thought I made music stop, but I don't know how. Okay, there it goes. Mercury's in retrograde still.
Cool, cool.
There we go. There we go. All right. We're live and we have action. Thank you, Jorge, for being here and for everyone who's coming for this tarot series. And I'll go ahead and let you take over.
Cool, cool. I'm very excited about this card. This card is the reason why the Thot deck is called the Thot deck. And a lot of people, I was actually checking on Reddit this week as to like how much people know about this card, and they're so confused.
Really?
And it's actually right in front of your face. Like Crowley is really good at hiding things, and a little bit of background on how was this card developed. Crowley gave Lady Harris a very hard time all the time. Lady Harris really wanted to finish this deck, but Crowley was like, "No, I wanted to do this, this, and that." So Lady Harris brought back what he described, and he says, "No, it's all wrong. You gotta do it again." And it's like, "But this is what you described." No, you gotta do it again. So he did that to her a lot. I heard this story from oh man, what is his name? Really big OTO guy, Lon Milo Duquette. Yeah, he was the one that was telling this story, and so yeah, I learned it from him on one of his podcasts. And so this card, the Thought deck, is not one card. Well, the older decks have 3 cards, and we're gonna go through all 3 of them. And to be able to try to analyze this card, once again, this card didn't come from Crowley. The descriptions didn't come from Crowley. It came from McGregor Mathers. And so this is book. Well, this is the book that Regardie published. So this is my face, and this is the book.
Wow.
It's a gigantic book that Israel Regardie published, and in that book there is my favorite tarot book. One of your friends was asking, which one's my tarot book? This is my tarot book. It's like I don't like any other tarot books. I wrote one. I have yet to publish it, but I haven't gotten around to it.
What's the name of it?
I don't even know.
Oh, the one that you had just now.
Oh, this one is called the. What did the guard call it? He called it the Complete Golden Dawn System of Magic.
Oh.
But I got this book in the 90s, kind of when Amazon was selling textbooks. And so I got it really cheap. I think I got it for like $15 or $14 because it didn't have like the back spine. And wow. This book has the one that has been taking me through all of my Golden Dawn training. And to this day, it's still my go-to book, like for the Golden Dawn and for tarot. And for a lot of other things. The Golden Dawn is such a huge edifice of wisdom and knowledge. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because I would like to read the definition before we get into cards of the magician. It says, the magician, it represents the union and balance of the elemental powers controlled by mind. The adept dedicating the minor implements on the altar, the path of Beth and Mercury link Kether and the crown with Binah, the Aima Elohim. The magician, therefore, is reflected in the intellect, which stores and gathers up knowledge and pours it into the house of life, Binah. The number of the path 12 suggests the synthesis of the zodiac as Mercury in the synthesis of the planet. The colors yellow, violet, gray, and indigo point to the mysterious astral light surrounding the great adept. This is really complicated. It's really hard to explain. I understand exactly what he's saying, but it's really hard to explain without having to explain Kabbalah and without having to explain the Tatwas. All those words like Binah, like Keter, like Aima Elohim, like Path 12, and then those are all Kabbalah terms, which I'm going to try to explain within the cards as opposed to like try to explain them from the text. The definition continues. Just one more sentence. It says it is a card linked with the name Tahuti and Hermes. Oh yeah, I brought Hermes. He's back there. I brought
Oh,
Hermes
nice.
with me. He's accompanying us. Tahuti and Hermes, as the previous one is with Krishna and Harpakrat or Dionysus. Like I said in the previous episode, the Dionysus is big in all of the Thot deck. He's absolutely there all over the Fool. In this one, I tend to disagree because the magician is not Dionysus, even though it can be in a way. And we'll see why. But it is more of a Hermes type of archetype. And the reason why is because if you can see the elements on that table, you have the pentacles, the cups, the sword, and there should be a fire in there somewhere. But he also has that belt around his waist, which is a snake. That is very Dionysian and very Shiva as well. Shiva, the Indian Shiva, always has snakes. In fact, usually around his neck. And sometimes when he dances, Shiva goes to his hands or to his arms. Or to his like head, kind of like protrudes out of his head. So it's kind of like an activated type of a snake. And so, yeah, there is a lot of Dionysian aspects within this card, but I'm going to try to explain it more from the Kabbalistic perspective to try to make more sense. If we can look at the Thot cards now,
Mm-hmm.
because right away, like I said, he just hides a lot of stuff. So let's start with the left one, and since the screen is really tiny, I'm going to have to look sometimes on my screen. If we can see, there is another figure that is not quite standing on a firm surface, but he seems to be kind of flying. There are kind of like wings on his heels, and those wings on his heels are one of the things that qualify Hermes or Mercury or Thot. They're basically kind of like the winds on the wings of the wind, or the winds of the mind, of the wings of the intellect. And so let's break it down. Thot or Hermes is the messenger of the gods. He is the one that relays messages between Zeus and the other gods, or between a god and the other god. And they gather this archetype from Mercury, the planet. When the sun starts to set, sometimes we can see Mercury. And so Mercury is sometimes on a zodiac station or house. And so therefore, it can be implied that Mercury is relaying a message from the sun, because the sun is so bright that we're not able to see on which house he is in without actually having to calculate it. But we can see Mercury. And so that is the message of Mercury. He is the messenger of the bright, powerful, mighty Helios. We're able to listen to Mercury. We're able to see where the sun is based on where Mercury is, because usually like 99% of the time, the house in which the sun is, that's where the house where Mercury is. And once the sun sets over the horizon, we're able to see Mercury sometimes, and we're able to deduce where is the sun, on which zodiac sign, on which zodiac sign or house is the sun. And so that is why he is the messenger. But that has been taken into many different archetypes, and in the Greek pantheon and the Egyptian pantheon, this is also huge. We don't know that much about the Egyptian pantheon because we don't have them as much surviving literature, but we have so many stories about Hermes. There's a story of Hermes and Hecate when they're fighting as to like who is the one in charge of taking the souls from the living to the dead. We have Hermes in the many dealings with Zeus, which I think Zeus, sometimes he's described as Jupiter, but I think his archetype is definitely a solar type of archetype. So because he's the one that Hermes is the one that receives messages from Zeus, kind of like, and gives it to the other gods, kind of like the sun. So Zeus is kind of like the god, the sun. And so there's not that much literature on this, but to me, it's kind of obvious that the god is the sun, and he's sometimes represented by the archetype of Zeus. And so, also one thing that we also notice about the wings and the feet in the second card, we definitely see them. They're there. In the first one, they're kind of camouflaged, and then on the third one, that one is the most way out there, and that's where there's a little bit more of a sexual connotations, more where is more of a Freudian card. The first two are very obvious, and we can totally gather what is going on. But on the third one, it becomes very Freudian and more difficult to understand. It's more of a psychological card. But one thing that is common between all three cards are the implements and the tools that they have. They have, like in the Rider Waite card, they have a bowl, which is kind of like the cups. I don't know, like a not like a bowl, more like a trophy. So there's like a ball, there's a fire, there's pentacles, and there's a sword, which are the four elements. And also we see the four elements in the pips. The pips are the cards from like from the ace or number one all the way to the king. So from the one all the way to the king, they each one have their own element. And so the magician is the one that has control over all of the elements. And this is also very much in line with the Kabbalah, or at least the Hermetic Kabbalah, which comes from Lurianic Kabbalah. Hermetic Kabbalah basically is a derivation of Lurianic Kabbalah. And so in the tree of life, we have four worlds. We have the Atzilut, the Briah, the Yetzirah, and the Azaya. The Atzilut is kind of like the world of, well, let's start from the bottom. The Azaya is kind of like the world of shells, the world of things that die, the world of shadows, the world of raw emotions, accidents, happenstance. Then the world of Yetzirah, which is right above it, climbing from the bottom of the tree to the top of the tree, is the world of formation, is the world of where things start to like being molded, where they have to take, where they're taking form, where the archetype starts to solidify itself. And then on top of that, there's Briah. That one is more of a world of kind of like becoming. So it's no longer an archetype. Now it's starting to become like a real thing. But there are polar opposites because it's on the spheres or the Sephiroth of kind of like justice and severity. And so as things start to become formed, they also start to become polar. They start to gaining polarity, which sways the tree way more. Now it starts to become more real, and so it just sways the tree back and forth. This is kind of reminiscent of kind of like the snake crawling on the tree, because the snake is the one that undulates between good and evil, kind of like the tree of life. And so it starts to become formed, but also starts to sway. And so, and then the last word, the last world, it's Atzilut, which is the world of the divine, the one that is closest to God. And this is the world that's in Kether, which is described in the definition that I gave. And so it also has Bina, and it has the Aima Elohim. Aima is the word for mom, and Elohim means gods or judges. And so that is the world of the judges. That is the world of God, the world of our connection with the higher divine. And that is represented in the card by that solar plex, I guess, thing with wings on the top, which is called the Aten. On the first card and the second card, you can totally see the Aten. The first one has a little dove, which represents the spirit. And the second one is just very Egyptian Aten. kind of like with the wings of a hawk. And then the third one doesn't even have that. It has more of a genius, not genie, kind of like a familiar behind the magician. And so that in a way is his Aten, because the Aten is the sun, but he's also kind of like the light that guides us. And so the guiding spirit on the third card is more of a kind of like a ram. And so he's just more guided by force, strength, virility, very male dominated. And also you can see that the Aten, or in this case the Aten with the Caduceus, it's in the genital region of the magician in the third card. And so that is the path. You can totally see the path from Malchut to Keter in the first and the second card, but on the third one is kind of weird. The Aten is in the genital area, which is more of a Freudian type of concept, which is more like kind of like where humans are driven by their sexual desires, as opposed by their spiritual or intellectual desires, which is more hinted on the first and the second card. And the reason why this deck is called the Thot deck is because of that little monkey in the first and the second card. Yeah, he's not in the third card. That's not a monkey. That's a baboon. And in Egyptian mythology, the baboon is Thot. Commonly today, now we know more Thot as the ibis. The ibis kind of like a looking man. But in Egyptian mythology, and obviously Crowley, he chose the baboon to represent Thot or Tehuti. And then the Greeks, they didn't have baboons, so they gave him more of a human form like we have behind me. But that is, and then who is Thot? Thot is the scribe, shall we say. But not only the scribe of knowledge and wisdom, like most books, modern books, speak of today, but he is also the scribe of the book of life. So when we die, according to Egyptian mythology, we are going to be guided by Anubis to a place of judgment. And then that place of judgment, our heart is taken out and is placed on a scale. And if the heart is too heavy and the scale tilts, we are given to a crocodile and to live in darkness forever. But if our heart is light, or if it's balanced, or if it's too light, then we're allowed to go into the field of reeds. That is what the Book of the Dead. Well, that's what commonly is called the Book of the Dead, but it's actually called the Coming Forward of Light. And so the Book of Coming Forward of Light, in that book, if our heart is too light, then therefore we're able to allow to pass. The deeds are recorded by Thot. And so we can look at this in two different ways. Number one, we can see him as a scribe of our actions, of our deeds, of our misery, our agony, or our glory, our victories, our solace, everything that we live in our lives is recorded by Thot. Now we can look at it as he's a god, or we can look at it as he is an archetype. In most near-death experiences, many people relate this story, where they say that, oh my gosh, my life flashed right before my eyes. That is Thot. Thot is the one telling you this is what you lived, and this is the things that you have done, whether they make you proud or whether they make you ashamed. They have been recorded. It can get a bit more complicated, but I'm not going to complicate it more. This is complicated as it is. And so in this case, this is the baboon. The baboon is the one that records all of that. And the reason why I think is a baboon is because that baboon is a primate that really doesn't quite analyze things very much. It acts more by impulse and emotion than it does by rationality, and that is what we are what we record. There's a very famous saying that says that we don't remember the acts that are described to us, but the way it makes us that but by the way it makes us feel. And so trauma, joy, we don't remember the action very much or how did it even sometimes happen, but we remember how it made us feel or how those emotions make us procures for us to have that particular experience. So we tend to memorize more emotions than we tend to memorize either words or other things like that. That's why sometimes we learn our ABCs with a little song, A, B, C, because the song makes us feel something, and that emotion is able to be transcribed into a mnemonic, into the ABCs. That is why we're able to memorize things easier through song than by simply saying A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's like, so we memorize and we internalize emotion way better than we internalize anything else. And so therefore the baboon is an emotional creature, and therefore it is the one that records our emotions throughout life, and not only in this life but the next. Now let's talk about a little bit about Hermes or Thot. Well, yeah, Thot and Hermes are basically the same thing. Uh, there's some differences, but they're basically the same. Between a conversation between Hermes and Hecate. Now, Hermes thought that he was kind of like the god of the underworld. He was the one that took souls into the god Hades. And so he thought, it's like, that's it, I'm in charge of all of this. This is my job. And then Hecate said, no, this is my job. And then Hermes was trying to kind of like fool her. And then Hecate kind of like had to lay down the law. He says, like, you stupid child. He's like, I'm not a child. I'm the son of Zeus. You're still a stupid child. It's like, I'm a titaness. I've been here, way before, your father, way before you, way before anything else. I am the one that brings the souls from the living to the dead. And so they start to get into an argument as to whose job that is and who's in charge of that. And then Hecate was the one that has to describe things to him. It's kind of like she's the one that schooled him. Even though Hermes is the god of wisdom, Hecate is way more knowledgeable than Hermes. And so she had to, kind of like school him and says, like, yes, you are the god of the roads, but I am the goddess of the crossroads. And so you kind of guide them a little bit, but I am the one that actually, crosses them through the threshold. So when we initially die, yes, we are taken by Hermes, hence the my life flashed before my eyes. So that's Hermes. And so once we go through Hermes, then we arrive to the threshold, and that is guided by Hecate. And so Hermes certainly is the type of god who is able to live, or to, how should we say it, deal or govern, I guess that's probably the best word to describe. uh, Hermes is the one that governs. Hermes and Hecate are the only two gods that can deal between life and death, and back and forwards, one and the other, where other gods are not able to. We have a play, for example, called The Frogs, where Dionysus, the great Dionysus, he wants to go to Tartarus, to the underworld, and he's not able to do so because he doesn't want to die. And so Dionysus was like, well, I don't want to die, and so how do I get to the underworld, because I have business there? And so he goes to see his brother, and then his brother says, well, you have to die. He's like, well, I don't want to die. And so the whole comedy starts, and eventually he does get to the underworld with the help of Hermes. And so there are other gods that also want to go to the underworld. Orpheus, for example, he wants to go rescue his beloved wife, and he eventually makes it all the way down to Tartarus, and he haggles Hermes for his wife to have her back. Unfortunately, he's not able to have her back, and so I think he ends up going with Jason and the Argonauts on the wonderful voyage for the Golden Fleece. And so the archetype of Hermes is there a lot, like all the time, especially as the one that transitions people from the living to the dead. But Hecate is ultimately the one that, who lays down the law. she's the she's the boss. You cannot get past Hecate. And then why am I bringing up all of this is because of the walls that are on these particular card. The reason why Hecate and Hermes are kind of like gods of magic is not because of hocus pocus crystals or plants or whatever. No, they are the gods of magic and also Apollo because they can transition between life and death. Magic happens through that threshold of life and death. It is magic, or at least the way we know magic, or at least in the Greek world. For example, necromancy is the workings with the death. You ask questions to the death. You ask the death for favors, or you ask certain spirits for favors. But those gods are often not on this earth, and if they're on this earth, they have another less powerful form. But if you want to ask the gods or a particular spirit or a dead person for a particular favor, you need to ask them in their world, which is the world of multidimensionalities, of multiple times, of they know what's going on. One way to explain this is with Socrates. Socrates, in the Apology, he is kind of mocked a little bit because Socrates is going to say, is like, well, I'm not going to retract my version of the gods. It's like, even if people think that I am making up gods. And then their friends are like, well, Socrates, you're going to die. And it's like, don't you want to ask your, I guess the word through translated will be your familiar. Don't you want to ask your familiar whether this is okay? Because you should probably ask them before you go to the court and die. And then Socrates says, like, well, I haven't heard from my familiar, but I am going to go there anyway. And so that familiar is probably not in this earth. It was partly in his mind and partly in another dimension. And so that is what the magician does. And if you want to jump to the colorful picture, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
According to MacGregor Mathers, and these are legends, there's not a lot of literature for this. This is the Vault of the Adepti. This one is one of the last ones of the original Golden Dawn Order that survived. This one's in the House of Wara in New Zealand. And this was one of the last Golden Dawn charters, shall we say, charter orders. And so this is the chamber where the Adepti, or now the magicians of the Golden Dawn, not even Golden Dawn at this point, is the A8RC. So you graduate from the Golden Dawn and now you're in a magical order, which you can only attain by going through the degrees of the Golden Dawn. So it's like the Golden Dawn is kind of like a mystery school. And so once you graduate from the mystery school, you can be invited to join this order. And this is where they practice their work. If you notice, there are little squares on the walls. Now, those little squares are supposed to represent a tool. And so they are the tools. And then they're also arranged in a very Kabbalistic way with astrological, chemical, and Thot was symbols. The Thot was of the colors. And that is really what makes this particular room really effective. For the lame person, going in there is not going to do anything. Just not going to do anything. It's just a stupid room with a bunch of colors. But if you have been training with the Thot for at least a year, where it requires a lot of meditation on colors and on shapes, and I'm staring at the sky, which I've done. Um, Going into that room makes you high because you have trained your brain to trigger certain things um, to a certain color. Certain colors make you feel certain things. And so once you have trained your brain for a whole year with the Thot, once you go in there, it will make you high without the use of any hallucinogenics. It just makes you high just because of the frequency of those colors. So that's why it is imperative to have those colors right. Now, the description of those colors are in this book and how to derive them. And very few vaults in this world have the colors correct. But if you do have the colors correct, you're able to get high and do magic. You start to see things, you start to hear voices, you start to kind of like dive in. I guess the term will be kind of like scrying. Each one of those squares will help you scry a particular vision or a particular entity. And that is how the magicians of the Golden Dawn or the A8 are able to perform magic in this room. Not necessarily because you raise a wand and you, I don't know, do sage or do a crystal. No, it's just they you do have wands and you do have weapons, kind of like the ones that are in the Rider Waite uh, card. But those walls in the Thot deck are supposed to represent these walls. So those are the walls of the magician, and that is why I'm bringing this up. And because it is important for us to know what do those walls mean. The Thot deck is so filled with so much beautiful stuff, and that is one of the reasons why I like to have these wonderful talks, because it is great to bring some light into what those wonderful symbols mean in the Thot deck. Because it has, even though it's in a lot of the literature, people cannot put them together. Like, why is there a monkey and why does it have the hands like this? And so there are so many things that are so obvious. But if you don't know what you're looking at because you don't have the background, it is hard to make it up. Like, for example, the Thot deck, it is supposed to be used by the OTO, but the OTO really doesn't have a lot of understanding of the cards because they refute the Golden Dawn. And also, if you are in the Golden Dawn, you need to belong to the right Golden Dawn for you to be able to know what the heck it is that you're learning. Because most Golden Dawn orders, they don't have a kind of lineage. Number two, they're filled with predators or just weird people that are not of lineage. And so since they don't have lineage, they're not Rosicrucians. They're just dudes that pick up a book and say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing the Golden Dawn." No, bro, you're not. It's like you think you are because you're reading the book, and you think you understand the book, but you're not. If you don't have somebody that's actually teaching you what this book actually means and what these symbols means and the stuff that you need to do for you to be able to do the work, you are just reading a book and pretending to be in the Golden Dawn. Not that I'm saying that my lineage, even though I do come from the lineage of Chris Monestra, it's kind of like a great McGregor Mathers lineage. Our lineage is kind of broken because it comes a little bit from Falcon, a little bit from Crawley, believe it or not, but mostly from Israel Rigardi. And so that's our lineage, and that's where I learned, and that's who my teachers were. My teachers were Chris Monestra, were Stefan Holler, were Pogrunion, among others. But those are three of the people to whom I owe a great deal. Because, and of course, Stefan, all those three, Chris Monestra was Israel Rigardi's partner. I wouldn't say wife because they were never married, but she was his partner. Stefan Holler was close to Israel Rigardi and asked him a lot of questions. And Pope Brunion got to have a few conversations with Israel Rigardi. And so my teachers' teachers were Israel Rigardi. And so not that Israel Rigardi was like the ultimate wise man, all knowledgeable, the Golden Dawn, which he wasn't. But he definitely tried very hard to put it all together, like he did with this book and other books that he wrote. And so that is where I come from. I come from a little bit of a lineage, shall we say? Uh, but other people that claim to have lineage, the lineage is not really the people that to whom the people that you know. The lineage is your understanding of the material and the spirits with whom you're able to have a relationship with by entering that vault. Because once you enter that vault, that room, and you're able to have those relationships with those spirits, they become your familiars, and they're that's what the Golden Dawn calls the guardians of the order. And so they're not malevolent spirits where they will punish you for revealing secrets. They're just very beautiful spirits that teach you things, and they guide you as to whether you want to heed them or not, or whether you want to verify their teachings or not. That is up to the student. But it's a very long journey. It is not like oh yeah, let's go and do it, or like let's do a ritual. No, no, no. It takes years of training for you to get there. Uh, because it's very much like math. It's built upon block upon block upon block, precept upon precept. But that's why the Golden Dawn is ordered the way it is. You need to understand not only the knowledge lectures in the Golden Dawn book, but you also need to learn of the meaning of the ritual, which is very important. That to me, that is the most important thing that you can learn out in the outer order of the Golden Dawn, is to learn the what is going on with you as you are going through the initiation, or what is going on with you as you're performing the initiation for somebody else. The paths, for example, here where like it describes like path number 12. It's like, what the heck is path number 12? It's like that is an inner order teaching. I mean, not an inner order teaching. That is a Golden Dawn teaching. It's like they teach you what are the paths, what are their meanings, how do they connect with the Sephiroth within the Kabbalah. Because when you're going through the Golden Dawn order, you're walking through the paths, and the paths mean something. And you begin from neophyte, from Malchut, and then you start to climb up the tree of life. And the only way to climb up is through those paths. And so the path of what from a Sephiroth to a Sephiroth, and each one of the Sephiroths represent multiple various things. Usually, we denote them or try to identify them by planets or by colors. For example, Malchut has 4 different colors, and then once you climb up to Yesod, it's kind of like a purple color. It's like, well, what does purple mean? What do those 4 colors mean? And a lot of people today that learn Hermetic Kabbalah, they don't really quite know what does those colors mean, or there's literature as to like what is okay. It's associated with the moon, it's associated with silver, it's associated with a particular angel, it's associated with a particular divine name, but there's way more than that. And there is just way, way, way more than that. And not that is only just the Hermetic part. Now, if you want to deal deeper into this, then you can go into Lurianic Kabbalah, and then there's another layer of wisdom over there. And then if you want to dig even deeper and you speak a little bit of Hebrew, there is the Abraham Abulafia understanding of all of this. There is the Sohar understanding of all of this with Moses de Leon. And then if you want to dig even deeper, there's like the mathematical Yamblikas layer to all of this, because Kabbalah, I believe, didn't just come out of like Moses de Leon. I believe the Kabbalah, or at least the Sohar, has a very good foundation within Yamblikas. Particular 2 books of Yamblikas, one on mathematics called I'm forgotten, it's called the monad, and then the other one is called the mysteries with the Egyptians. That is a very complicated book, very, very complicated book, but it gets very Kabbalistic very, very, very fast. because it starts talking about gods, starts talking about their nature, and it starts talking about the assignments of kind of like the planets and the gods. And so that is where Kabbalah starts to mold itself. Certainly that is very Zohar. But of course, Moses de Leon in the Zohar, he just takes it on hyperspace. He just writes, what is it, I think 24 books, where, it's just revelation upon revelation upon revelation of just absolute wonderful wisdom. But before we get so much into Kabbalah, what else can we say about the card? We have the snakes on the head on the magician. That is very much of Dionysian thing. Like I said, Dionysus or Shiva, they has like just snakes on his head, kind of coming out. On the first card, we have the ibis wand. The ibis wand is a tool that one of the adepts of the golden, well, or the AARC, or the Golden Dawn, if you want to call it that, it has to carry. That is the wand of the magician within the vault of the adepti. And then on the second card, we don't have him with an ibis. He just kind of like has a little Egyptian thing going on. I'm not sure what that means. And the third card is a little bit more weird because it has like a little ram or a lion type of wand or sword that he seems to be holding and be holding it down. The sword is another possible tool of the magician, but it's really hard to use in the vault. And that is why I don't think the third guy is actually in the vault. It has a little bit of the remnants on it, but it seems to be having more of a familiar behind them. And so it seems that the third card, he's not really in a vault, but he is more of in an astral plane, because that's where you meet your familiars. You don't meet your familiars in this world, or at least not that I've ever known has ever seen them. In fact, Socrates and his buddies also ask the same questions. Have you ever seen a god? And they'll say, no, I have not seen a god. But they all heard him in their heads. They all feel their presence, but nobody has ever seen them like face to face. And so I think that is what the third card is basically saying, that we don't see them. Another tool that the magician in the third card is carrying is a tool, the one on the right hand all the way to the edge, is the wand of Mercury, but it's kind of like a Monas Hieroglyphica from John Dee type of symbol, because it's hiding the symbol not only of Mercury, but also of the sun, and also of the moon, and also of Jupiter, and also of Mars, and also in a way kind of a little bit Venus. And so all of the 7 planets are in that little wand. And so that one is pretty cool. But he's also carrying kind of like a scroll with a tree of life on it. So basically like, Hermes writing the book of life. He has an egg. We haven't talked about this. That little egg with the little wings, which is in the first card and on the third card. Now, the egg, it is a symbol of, what is his name? Phoebus, I think it is Phoebus. It's also a very Greek thing, which is kind of like a usually in literature, medieval literature, we see that egg kind of like encurled by a snake. It's just kind of like a symbol of potential for energy. But in these particular pictures, is not encurled by a snake, but it's just decorated by 2 wings, which is very Hermes. Basically, there's a potential for life which is now taking form. And so that is the power of the magician. The magician is to embed the potentiality of a cause, and releasing into a certain type of action and effect. And that is the job of the magician. The magician is not necessarily doing this willy-nilly on his own, kind of like let's try it. Is more of like, this is what is the potential of something and how I'm going to bring it to life. This is very much in the Greek magical papyri, where the Greek magical papyri doesn't just ask for something out of nothing. There's only a potential for something, and then from that potential they bring it to life. There's a potential and there's an adversity, and so that adversity is basically either used to carry along that magical strength, the magical practice, or something that has a potential within itself carries the magician takes it to another level. It just Mercury just takes it from one place and takes it to another, and that is really the essence of who the magician is. It just takes it from one place and takes it to another, from a state of potentiality to a state of realization, and with the help of the gods, with the help of your familiars, with the help of your strength. Either it can be kind of like a celestial strength, like in Keter, or terrestrial strength, like in Malchut, or how should we say, I don't know, sexual strength or libido strength, like in the third card. It just, but of course, grounded in reason and grounded within the abilities of the magician, which is just based on his knowledge of wisdom, his knowledge of the symbols, his training, and of course his spirits, like I already said.
What is the how is there three different cards for the same one? I don't know.
Yeah, I explained that in the beginning because
Okay.
Crowley was crazy, and so
Okay.
he well, this is the story that Non-Milo Duquette said, that there were different drawings for the same card, multiple ones, because Crowley described to Lady Harris, who was the one that illustrated the cards. He said, "It's like, well, this is what the card needs to look like." It was like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna go and draw it. So she goes and she draws it, and then she takes it back to Crowley. And Crowley was like, "No, no, no, you got it all wrong. You got to do this. But this is what you described. No, 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 you got to do this." And so he changed his mind all the time. Or his craziness, I don't know. By that time, he was also kind of going crazy.
Okay.
He had like some really like some real mental problems. So I'm surprised that this deck was so beautiful and so powerful. And by that time, Crowley was kind of losing his marbles by this point.
Wow. And then is there significance of why there are three different colors, or is that up to her to do?
No, no, no. This is
Okay.
described in the thing, which is
Okay.
also. Thank you for asking. It has to do with the symbols at the bottom. Mercury is the color yellow, and so you see the yellow, and then Beth is the bluish color, and so that is why they're yellow and blue, yellow and blue, and those are
Okay.
Tatwas assigned. That those are the things that trigger your head. Also, it says right here, where are we at? Towards the house of life. Oh yeah, the colors yellow, violet, gray, and indigo point to the mysterious astral light surrounding the great adept. Um, those colors are part of the tree of life, and they also are part of the vault of the Golden Dawn, or the AARC. And
Got it.
so, but they are, also like I said in the previous episode, is like the symbols at the bottom are the ones that dictate the colors of the card.
Okay, that makes more sense. And then the Hebrew alphabet. That's the letter Bet.
Beth, yeah, it means
Bet. Okay.
house. In the Golden Dawn Kabbalah, it means house. But if you get more Lurianic or Cordovero, it not only does it mean house, it means kind of like enclosure, or kind of like an egg too. Kind of like
Okay.
it guards you. It kind of looks like a house too. Kind of like you enter through the house and you can habitate inside. You're kind of like being protected. And so the first we have in the Fool we have the Aleph, which is kind of like fiery, crazy, flaming all over the place, neither here or there, alive or death. But Beth is more like foundation, more like a house. Like, I'm here, I have a foundation. It's bringing protection, and so that is what the gematria of the letter Beth means.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. sometimes I need things explained twice.
No. I miss things too. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, of course. This is so cool. I mean, all three of them are so stunning. But and then I have the deck, one of the decks, but mine is the green one. So now I'm like, well, how do I get the other ones?
They're expensive. They're really
Really?
expensive. I used to have them and I sold them because I was like, oh no, I'm still against Crowley. But then
Mhm.
once I got my 5-6 in the Golden Dawn and I created my own deck, and I was like, looking at other decks. I realized, holy crap, the Thought deck is the best deck out there.
Yeah,
It's like
so beautiful.
there's no better deck out there. It's like that out of all the decks that have been created for 100 years, this is to me the best one because it has all the symbols, it has all the right colors. The artwork is gorgeous.
Hmm.
It's just the best deck out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Trying to think if I have any more questions before we move on, but I feel like you covered everything. Amazing. Thank you. And then I
No.
see too on I was like looking across, I see that it has like the pentacle, the cup, the sword, and the wand. So representing all the elements that makes sense for kind of
Yep.
like in charge of all of it. That makes a
Yep.
lot more sense.
Yeah. And in fact, we see this in so many different cultures. It's like
Hmm.
first you have to declare the elements. That's why the pyramids have 4 corners.
Hmm.
And like even today, like one time I went with my uncle to a shamanic thing, and in Real de Catorce, and the shaman was declaring the corners. It's
Hmm.
like, he was saying like dryness, heat, cold, wet, and he was like, "Holy crap! Why is he declaring the elements in the corners?" And then now, like I'm reading, for example, the Greek magical papyri, and it also declares the corners. The Egyptians declare the corners by kind of like the east is the ibis, and then the frog is this, and then the bull is this. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like all of these cultures are doing magic in the same way.
Hmm.
It's like the Golden Dawn is like you have the four elements because of Agrippa. That's basically where it came from. Agrippa was kind of like the foundation for the three occult books of Agrippa. Was the foundation for a lot of the European magic, even Joseph Smith magic or Joseph Smith stuff. Is like Joseph Smith's always quoting Agrippa, but not through Agrippa, but from Bennett, which through the Magus. But it's like just the 4 corners are everywhere in Mormonism, in shamanic stuff, in Egyptian stuff, in Greek stuff. It's like the 4 corners of 4 elements are everywhere.
How
The Shams al
fascinating.
Marif, which is like a Andalusian, what is that called? Sufi magic. It is
Hmm.
also there. It's like they're everywhere. Those 4 corners are everywhere.
Wow, very cool. Well, I guess that makes sense. And if everyone's doing it, it's like obviously for a reason and clearly like foundation makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I always say starting with the elements is one of the best things, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, I am so excited to keep going into this series. Next, we will be doing the same class in Espanol. And then on April 3rd, we will be covering the High Priestess, which is
Lovely.
super exciting.
Love the high priestess.
Um, Yeah. All right. I don't have anything else to add if you do.
Yes, one thing. I was listening to somebody talk about tarot. How because tarot is obviously mostly used for divination. Um, and so one person was saying that you were able to get the interpretation through the card, and yes, that is absolutely correct. You get interpretation from the card, but it amplifies your understanding of your reading by understanding the card. And
Mm.
so that is one of the reasons why I love doing this, because a lot of people teach or read tarot through intuition,
Mhm.
and you don't need to rely on your intuition. You can rely on the symbols,
Mm.
because the gods and the spirits, they speak through symbols.
Mhm.
Intuitions are emotional.
Mm.
Intuitions are very much ordained and controlled by emotion. And so you're reading sometimes by emotion and not particularly by symbols or by the gods, which are ideally that is what you want to do. The reason why you're reading through the tarot is because you want to connect with the guardians of the tarot, or with the gods, or the spirits of the tarot. I can testify to this. They can be either benign or they can be maleficent. But if you have a good relationship with them and you understand their symbols and you understand what they're telling you, your readings will be highly enhanced by understanding the cards. So I recommend people keep watching. Go watch the
Yeah,
videos.
it feels a lot more grounded,
Yeah, correct. Yes.
and intellectual.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. All right, I'm gonna close this one out, and then I will meet you over in the next class.
Right on. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.